Okay, I kind of went over the agenda. I started the recording a little bit late, but these are the areas that we're going to be covering today concerning CIP and CIP allocations. Basically, what is CIP? CIP is the program that we use at the lab to basically do our compensation increase program. So CIP is just an acronym for the compensation increase program that we have here at the lab. Basically, who's eligible for CIP? I'm going to show you some basically our salary analysis worksheet. It has one tab in there that has everything about CIP and who's eligible and so forth. Basically, CIP is a CIP accountable employee is defined as any fixed employee, personnel, variable personnel are excluded, whose employee classification is career, limited, or contract, so long as they're not represented by a bargaining unit or an UC executive program. So employee classification specifically excluded are floater, faculty, limited, rehired retirees, academic student, casual, restricted, and contingent workers. How is CIP determined? CIP is determined every year based on the employees that have been hired as of 9/30. So what we do is we take a snapshot on September 30th of the entire lab population, which is the entire payroll base. And that is used to determine the division and departments. Now, this payroll base is only based on CIP eligible employees. So we would be excluding any represented, any floaters and so forth that we mentioned above that should not be part of the program. Then from there, this payroll base is used to determine, basically that's how we determine the allocation pool for the 10-1 merit increases and the adjustment promotion allocations. So the percentage amounts that are basically determined by Department of Energy. They're the ones that let us know what percentages that we can allocate towards merit and towards adjustment and promotions. And this year, our merit increase allocation is going to be 3.3. We did get a little bit extra allocation for the adjustment and promotions this year. So we got an additional 0.4. So basically though, for the field, we are going to be putting out 1.2. This here is a screenshot of the CIP payroll base. This is basically how you can tell if somebody is going to be CIP eligible or not, or if a pay action is CIP eligible. So everybody that is included in the CIP payroll base is units 99 and FX. Those are the two main ones, non-represented. Within that classification, we're looking mainly at full-time and part-time that are career, contract, and staff limited. So those that's the majority of our CIP population in that kind of that in a nutshell there. Anybody that's excluded, you'll see there in yellow, the variable SMGs are excluded. And then we go into these next employee classifications. All of those are excluded from CIP. Let me see. The other thing that we have with CIP is an allocation for what we call early career scientists. I didn't do a slide on that. I'm going to just talk a little bit about that because this is our last year to have this population. And what an early career scientist is, it was a population that they wanted to make sure that already existed here at the lab. They wanted to make sure that they were paid appropriately to market. And they knew that they were really below market. So they were looking at a very particular group of successors that were within the scientific, and this is only for SNEs, this is, nobody else is in this program. And they went to DOE and asked for a special allocation. So DOE said, fine, we're gonna give you this special allocation. It's gonna be for this particular group that we've defined as it's been 10 years since their PhD had been obtained. So DOE said, fine, we're going to give you this special pot of money, but it can only be used to get these folks up to market. In the meantime, the rest of the scientists, it's like, well, why are we just looking at this one particular group? Why aren't we doing it for all scientists? It's because what we did is that basically we are now letting the divisions know that please do not bring your scientists in way below market. That's a big problem. That's what caused this whole thing to happen to begin with. So they've been much better at doing that. And meanwhile, we've also been, as you know, the job validations have been happening more frequently. So the salary structures, we've been doing things to address this problem or issue that we had. So in this right now, I don't have the finalized amounts left for the early career scientists. Again, there's no new members, there's no new employees that are added to it. If anything, every year, most of them kind of graduate out of the program. So once they have reached that 10-year time frame, then we take them off the list. So I will be publishing the list shortly. Once I finish up this other allocations and our spending reports for the rest of the divisions. So also the other thing too is the early career scientists, it did exclude project scientists. So, and again, it's going to end this year. So this is the final year. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about early career scientists is that whenever you put one in, again, because I do have a list, and that I track on the spending report, the automatic default for an early career scientist will go towards that pot of money. Because remember, the early career scientist money is very specified to that group. So if, for instance, you need to use monies from any other of your allocations, I would need to know about it in advance, because we're also very limited that additional monies that we get from DOE, that additional 0.4 or 0.2 with the field is using, that cannot be touched for this. So there's a lot of different kind of restrictions about moving money between the early career scientists and your other allocations. So again, if there's any kind of plans, don't just make that assumption and do it. And, you know, because otherwise there's no way I can track it on the spending report. And again, we want to make sure that we're staying compliant with the Department of Energy. So does anybody have any questions around early career scientists? No? Selena, do you have anything else to add to that you can think of? I can't hear you. There you go.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to mention that since this is the last year for ECS allocation and you will have a list of those employees, it's very important that we plan accordingly and we go ahead and exhaust those funds. So you really don't want to use your CIP allocation if you have ECS allocation and you've done your planning. CIP should be your secondary option. But again, it is totally up to the division how you handle your allocations, but that is just one strategy I would suggest.
Thank you, Selena. That's a good point though, is to use it all up at first. What I'm going to do next is I have a division spending report that I made as a sample and talk a little bit about the allocations. I'm going to just kind of go into that report, and then within that report too, again, this is the division spending report. You're going to get this at the beginning of the year, right now, at the beginning of this fiscal year. It's a detailed report, again, that I've been sending out. When I do the monthly spending reports, that's going to be a summarized report for your division, and it's just going to give you summary numbers. What I'm going to make some suggestions about how to keep track of your budgets and how to keep track of these numbers so that we don't fall too far out of alignment before we get to the final, like summertime, and we start doing consolidations. And it's even more and more important that we make sure that your report and what you have as a budget and your balances are lining up with mine. And if not, like I said, you can always reach out to me, because I know this report is just kind of a static report. It doesn't give you all of the details, but you can always feel free to reach out to me and ask for a detailed report, which I can produce pretty quickly. So from there, I'm just going to show you real quick.
And while Pat sets that up, I just want to mention that when we're saying budgets, we're talking about allocations. Yes, so we're going to replace the word budget with allocation.
So basically, this is the report that I sent out to everybody. It gives you all of your payroll base that the amount was based on for that division. It will give you the merit allocation, which is 3.3% of the base, and then your promos and adjustments, which is 1.2% of the base. So everybody is listed in here. These are all sorted by division. then by job code, and then by monthly FTE with the highest at the top based on the job code. So right there, that's the majority of your information there. So this is your entire payroll base that your allocation pool was derived from. And here it'll have your division code in this box. What this is basically the spending report. And this spending report was as of November 8th. So I'm sure you may have some other pay actions that happened in between that time. So what this does here, it gives you an employee count of the merit. So it's just looking at this first group of folks. This here is giving a total of the FTE increase, decrease. And this also includes any lump sum payments, which are off to the side here. So it will grab both. It will grab this and it'll grab this side here too. So at the bottom, we also, these two should match because this is doing the identical thing. It's collecting all of your merit increases and giving you a total. This is the payroll base that we had as of 9/30. This was the merit allocation. And then this is just basically running the year-to-date balance. So this way, you know what your balance is. Now, say for instance, you might have had some folks on LOA that are going to have a merit that's going to show up later. I would highly suggest you add them into this. You can actually use this as a checkbook and to track the rest of your pay actions that come through. So I would add them here, go ahead and put all your information in, and then this will just keep tallying it up. You can insert lines up here if you want to. So, but make sure you stay within your amounts, your allocation amounts. This section here is going to be for your equity and promotions. So it's doing the identical thing, adding up everything in your FTE, looking at the payroll base, which should be identical to this one. This is how much for the 1.2, and this is the remainder of what's the balance. So, and again, I suggest every time you have an equity promotion is to track them in here and add more lines. And this will just keep the balance here for you. Another suggestion, make a comment section. So maybe you're going to put some folks in here. Hey, I haven't really done the actual pay action yet, but I need to know, do I have enough money to do it? You can maybe say something in here, pay action, not complete. So you know that, oh, this one here, if I look at my balance, if I minus this out because we haven't done this yet, then this is what my balance is. So this sheet actually is a really good starting point for you to use. And I think, Selena, you also had some comments about, because we're going to get to a point, what's going to happen, everything's fine right now. We're all kind of going along. Everybody's got money, everybody's kind of, fat and happy. And then we start getting into the summer. And then people are, oh, I need to borrow from so-and-so. I need to get this, loan from this division, or, we're going to use money and share allocation. When that starts to happen, this is even more important. And Selena had a good suggestion of maybe next year I'll do this as a kind of a helpful tool, is to add a tab in here and call it your special arrangements. And in that tab, keep track of who you are borrowing or loaning money to. The other thing too that's really important about that is before you actually do the arrangement, to let us know in comp that this is happening, because we actually have a way of tracking it, and it will reflect in the spending report if you give us the information up front. So a lot of times what we noticed last year, and I ran into this, happened a few times, is that some folks were like, well, Pat, no, my budget's fine. I have plenty of money. And I'm just like, no, I'm seeing negative 5,000. And they're like, oh, well, we also borrowed money from this division or that division. And the thing is, we need to know that, so that way we can also track it. So if you want to, like I said, you can make an additional tab, call it special arrangements, and then that way when you're, hey, I'm not lining up to Pat, what's going on, or lining up to the comp spending report, you can take a look at that tab and maybe even send us a copy of it to say, hey, this is what's going on. But we really prefer that you tell us in advance of any special arrangements and make sure that, I prefer an email. That's my thing, because that way I have a record. And I usually prefer the email also from the CCing, say, the HR division partner from the division that they're borrowing money from. Hey, I talked to, Latanja. She said it was okay for me to borrow $100, and Latanja's also CC. I actually save those emails, so that way I make sure that I'm able to track them and to, you know, get everything on record like we should. So let's see. I can't, do you have
Now,
anything else to add, Selena?
yeah, what I would also add is that what Pat just said, I like for that to happen, but I like for you to attach it to the smart sheet as well, so that it
An email
becomes
to
part
you.
of the documentation,
That's good.
part of the record. But what I would also like to mention is that Pat sends these out monthly, so that report date will change, and you can reconcile each month your actions that you've manually input against what's actually been captured. And if there is an issue at that point, at that reconciliation point, we can handle it on a monthly basis instead of waiting to the end of the year to kind of figure out what's going on. So that's maybe a suggestion you want to, a practice you want to use. Also, looking at the spreadsheet, if you don't need to look at your merits all the time, you can group that and outline, hide that, so that you don't have to look at it and you can go directly to.
Up here and go to it's data
Yep.
and group.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have this little button and you can just do that. All I want to say is look at this.
Yeah. So that may make it easier if you're not tracking merits every, you know, on a monthly basis. You can just quickly hide that for convenience.
So does anybody have any other questions or?
I have one question. Oh,
Sure.
I'm just curious, what happens to the unused merit?
The
money?
unused, that's a really good question, Latanja. Again, we talked about everybody maintaining their budgets because, you know, some folks are going to do it all the way. They're going to use every last penny. And then there's other folks that are not going to have enough allocation to complete all of the actions that they wanted to. And what will happen is usually it's going to be around summertime. I don't know, June, July. I don't want to give a specific month, but it's roughly around summertime is when we do the consolidation, the SIP
Oh,
consolidation.
no. For merit, it's
Oh, for
around
merit,
March.
unused merit.
Yeah, for
We
we're
don't-
talking about the merit application. So what generally happens is that it's kind of consolidated unofficially around March, and because all pay actions need to happen by May 1st, right? So after May 1st, the merit allocation isn't there anyways. So everything that needs to happen prior to that, if you find that you need to give off-cycle merits that you have not accounted for and do not have allocation for, then we would discuss that at that time and figure out what other divisions in your area first has additional merit allocation that you can borrow from, and then maybe start reaching out to other divisions.
Okay,
Does
Thank
that answer your question, Latanja?
yeah, thank you.
Latanja, can I add something here? This is Alex. Biosciences, and I used to do an OCFO too. Anyone who wasn't eligible for a 10-1 merit, whether they were promoted or hired after 4-1, we had leftover money, and we would apply to those who weren't eligible on 10-1, and we would apply across the board to those as a 4-1. We still do it at Biosciences too. They have to have a rating in the system per comp, but we definitely use our money up because we were leaving money on the table. And we do that a lot less now because we really want all our divisions to use the maximum amount on their merits. But anything left over, we will apply equitably across the whole area of those who are eligible.
It sounds like an interesting strategy, and definitely something you guys should really discuss and figure out how other people are using that as well.
Yeah, that's a
So
good
even though they got merit effective 10-1.
That's not the case.
No, anyone, it's only for those who did
Off
not.
cycles.
Oh, for didn't. Okay,
off
gotcha.
cycles, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
and I'm happy to talk line with you, Latanja, if you like.
Okay, thanks.
So Pat, I had a quick question, and I may have missed this, sorry, but this the screen that you're showing, what is it, division, does it say code at the bottom? Sorry.
Yes. So
I'm not seeing that sheet in the ones that we received. Is that something we're supposed to create?
no, you should have that sheet. They're in every single file. It will have, like, it would say CH, or it would say, so it would be the division code right here.
Yeah, she's redacted it for this
Right.
recording and presentation.
Okay.
I just didn't want to have it showing right now to show any particular division. But yeah, it would have right here, it would be, you know, AA, CH, whatever the division code is would sit in there. And then this is basically your spending report here.
Got it. It's got the calculators built in. Thank you.
And little calculators built in. So yeah, like I said, this would be a great thing to use as your checkbook. So
long as you add the rows right underneath,
right here. and
yeah, the
rows right
formulas will
here.
keep going. If you do something cute, you're gonna lose your formulas.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been sort of creating our own, but since we've got this year, I'll try to encourage them to use this.
Yeah, and I'll say maybe next year we can add a few other little things to it, like the special, because after it was a lot going on, and Selena brought that up. She goes, it'd be nice if we had a tab in here like we do for the spending report about special arrangements that you guys can also track. So that's why for this year, you know, if you want to add a tab in it and then call it special arrangements, you know, name it, and then that way you can also track when you've borrowed and loaned money to different divisions. So,
Pat, you have about 4 minutes left.
okay, anybody else have any other questions? I really appreciate everybody's time. Let me stop sharing here.
Thank you for putting it together, Pat. I know